Hey everyone, welcome to Mistake Man. This is part 2 of my build of the model of the StarCraft SCV. I've been doing a bit of work, mostly just experimenting with different ideas about how I want to approach the model, get some things done. I've been doing a little bit of work with some lighting, just some experimentation with how I want to do some things. I've been working on the cockpit, and here's kind of a start to the chair for my pilot. That's not finished yet. Made an attempt at building some windows for the cockpit. Don't know if I'll end up using those or not. It's been a bit scatterbrained. A lot of things to do and trying to figure out exactly where to start. So, one of my original ideas when I was first modifying the 3D model of this and trying to hollow everything out was I knew it would be kind of hard to work in there. And I originally thought that maybe I could separate this frame and have it be a separate piece. But I wasn't too confident in my abilities to do that. I was still kind of learning how to manipulate the STL files in Blender. And so I just decided not to do that. So instead, I opened up this bottom piece. I separated the bottom piece of the cockpit as its own piece so that I could at least kind of work up inside of there. And I hoped that that would be enough. And as I've been working on these window pieces, trying to get those shaped right and everything, just working inside that tiny space has been really frustrating. So I went back to that idea and thought maybe I could split that off. And now I've actually got more experience working with and manipulating the STL files. So I figured maybe I actually could go back and at least give that a try. So I did. There's kind of a detail on top here. I didn't want a seam going across that, so I cut the seam down underneath it and around the front. Same with these side features here. I didn't want the seam just cutting down across those, so I cut behind them and then made like a little indentation in the frame piece. So those just fit right up against it like that. And these features help to locate the frame piece so it doesn't just slide around on there. So the top piece keeps it from moving up and down, and the two side ones keep it from going left to right. So it tends to hold it in place nicely. I don't even have to, I mean it will fall loose if I knock it, but not bad. And then I also had to modify the bottom piece a little bit just to kind of latch onto the separate frame piece. And also I was struggling with the original piece. I didn't have any way to locate this, and so it would just kind of slide around like that. So I figured since I'm making changes to this piece and I'm going to have to reprint it again anyway, then I might as well solve that issue and put some tabs on there. So that will locate that in place. And that works a lot better. So now that's going to make working on the canopy glass so much easier, and also make working inside the cockpit for detailing that out and lighting it. That's going to be much easier as well. As you can see, I've already glued on the top piece and the piece in the back, and I've still got to build the cockpit and do all the scratch build detailing in there. So I might have shot myself in the foot with that, making it less accessible by gluing these pieces in place, but too late now. With the original cockpit piece, you can see there's some wires coming out here. I just kind of looped them up and taped them down because the wire leads were pretty long and they dangling and getting in the way of everything. But those are wires that go up to, you can see up at the top, the roof of the cockpit there. They go to these little lights at the front, just above the cockpit. Two little lights at the top there. I want those to be little spotlights. And so I was able to get some tiny little SMD lights in there, and I liked the way they looked, so I put some UV resin, just clear UV resin, poured it in there, and hit it with the UV light to cure those LEDs in place. So that was before I decided to rework the cockpit, so I'm going to have to do it again. I'll probably see if I can break these out and just reuse these ones, these LED lights, and just kind of crack away the resin, see if I can get those out, so I can just reuse them in here. But if I can't, oh well, I've got more of those. Trying to get the glass pieces to fit in there nicely is a challenge. There's not a whole lot of space behind the frame to attach the glass to. I originally started building them as separate pieces. So there's one for the bottom front. And then I had one that I started to work on for this side piece, this side window here. Of course that would go on the inside, but it doesn't really fit very well because I hadn't shaped it completely to fit well. But the idea was I was going to do separate pieces of glass for each part of the window, but that was a huge pain. I'd spent a lot of time trying to get those pieces to fit, and they don't even fit that well. So I'm considering maybe doing it all out of one piece if I can, but I'll have to probably do some work on the computer to kind of use the 3D model to get an idea of exactly how flat that even is, and if I can build like a one-piece window that I can unfold into a flat pattern that I could then cut out of clear plastic like this, and then put bends into to kind of fold it up into the shape that would fit inside of there. Not sure how practical that's going to be. I still need to investigate that. But for now, I'm working on the scratch build cockpit. I want to get that detail as far along as I can at this point. Got my little pilot figure here. I'm going to start to build a little seat for him. Something like that. He doesn't sit on there very well right now. I mean, he's just gravity holding him on. So the idea is the kind of arm sticking out here on the chair is going to have a control coming up. It's going to look like his hand is grabbing onto that control. And then I'll have like a separate control that's maybe attached to the side of the cockpit, or maybe to the bottom of the chair here, just kind of like a more articulated arm style control that is going to go to his other hand to make it look like he's driving the SCV and operating the mining tools. White plastic against these dark gloves really throws off the exposure on my camera, so let me try that. So that's what I've got for the seat. Like I said, it's not quite finished. I'm going to do some more detailing on it. And right now the seat and the back of, like the butt of the seat and the back of the seat and the headrest are just flat pieces of plastic, which doesn't really look very good, and also makes it so that he doesn't really sit on there very, very well. So I want to kind of make those look more like seat cushions. And my idea is to sculpt something out of clay. So I've got this sculpey polymer clay stuff. I've never worked with this stuff before, but you kind of sculpt it into the shape you want, and then you bake it in the oven for just a little while, and then it hardens. I did a test run where I sculpted some cushions on the back and the headrest, and they looked decent enough, and I was able to kind of push the pilot figure into the back rest of the chair to kind of have it conform to his back a little more, so he would sit in there a little more stable. And it looked pretty decent. So but the problem was it was stuck onto this plastic. I'm not going to bake it while it's on my seat here. I'm pretty sure the heat required, it says on the package you got to bake at 275 Fahrenheit or 130 Celsius for 15 minutes. I don't know what that would do to this polystyrene. Probably would, I don't know if it would melt it completely, but it would start to deform it probably. So it could ruin the work I've done already, and I don't want to do that. So I couldn't just bake it on the seat, so I had to get it off. I tried maybe just like scraping it off the back of the headrest, but the polymer clay is really soft. Put it in this package so that it wouldn't dry out, but now it's hard to get out. Okay, let me show you. If you've never worked with this stuff like me, it's pretty soft. I mean, it's, great for sculpting. That's what you want. But being able to remove the little headrest that I made off the back of the seat, it just wasn't going to happen without just deforming it and making it not look like a headrest anymore. So I thought maybe I'll just leave it overnight to see if maybe the clay will dry out a little bit on its own just in the open air, and then maybe I could pop it off and then bake it to finish it, curing it the rest of the way. So I was going to leave it on there overnight. I wasn't able to get back to it the next day, so it actually sat on there for several days, and it had changed consistency a little bit, like it had maybe dried out a tiny bit, but it was still pretty soft enough that I wasn't going to be able to remove it without deforming it. And also, something I didn't expect is that it had started to melt the styrene, almost in the way that plastic cement does, just not as aggressive. But after being on there for several days, it had started to soften the plastic, and so it was so the clay was almost glued to the plastic, so there was no way at all that I was going to get it off there without destroying it. So I had to just scrape it all off, and then it left the plastic pretty sticky, so I had to kind of scrape away that sticky layer. It seems okay now. That was yesterday, so after a day or less, the plastic has more or less gone back to normal. After scraping off most of that gooey stuff, it's not really sticky to the touch anymore. So I was able to kind of clean up that mess. Not sure what to do, but I've got an idea, and that is to get some aluminum foil, form it onto there, and wrap the foil just around it so it stays in place. Something more or less like that. I would do a little nicer job of wrapping it, but you get the idea. That way I can actually sculpt it on there, and then it's, got a rigid backing for me to be able to sculpt against. And then once I'm done sculpting it and I like the look, just carefully either cut the foil or carefully unfold it and pull it off the backing, and then flatten the foil out again. Maybe that'll work. And I can just pop it in the oven, bake it on the foil. Once it's baked, hopefully be able to remove it from the foil. Question mark. Don't know. Like I said, I've never actually worked with this stuff, so I haven't baked any yet, so I don't know what that's going to be like, if it's going to just stick to the foil or if it'll just come right off. Anyway, that is worth a try, so I'm going to do that. Okay, been doing a little bit of sculpting on the headrest, just to kind of make it look like it's padded and upholstered. Now I'm going to try and get this off without destroying it. I figured I'll test this method on the small headpiece first before I do the other cushions. Okay, I got the piece off. I thought I would flatten out the foil just to make sure that the headrest piece is flat. But I think if I do that, I might just be risking destroying the sculpt. So maybe I will just bake it like that. Okay, I've got the seat cushion sculpted, more or less. It's still kind of a rough sculpt, but I'll refine it a little bit later. Okay, I've got a rough sculpt on the seat back cushion now. So it's time to squish the pilot into the clay and make an impression. Okay, that's more or less it. Now I gotta carefully push him in without breaking his arms off. Okay, let's pull him out, see how it looks. He's stuck in there pretty good. Oh no, he's stuck really well to that clay. Dang it. He's not coming off there without destroying the seat. Okay, well, I will clean up this mess and give it another try. Alright, I got those cushions resculpted, and I was able to push the pilot into it. Just put a little bit of oil on his back and on his butt. Surprisingly, it's still kind of stuck with the oil. This clay is very sticky. Maybe oil's not the right choice, I don't know, but it did help. As you can see, I was able to get the pilot free, left a little butt print on the seat, back print on the back, and I added a little bit of detail, just like some upholstery lines. I don't even know if you'll be able to see any of that once the pilot's in there and this is installed in the cockpit, but just in case. So I just need to remove this, and then I can bake it. So it should be relatively easy to remove. It kept trying to come off while I was working on it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I'm gonna take this piece and the headrest and go put them in the oven. Okay, so I baked the pieces. The instructions say 15 minutes per 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters. I definitely don't have that much. I did it for probably about 11 minutes. I think that it's done. Let's see how well it comes off of the foil. Oh, that comes right off. Nice. It's not brittle. It's a little bit flexible. That's nice. It's not going to just crumble on me. That's good. Let's get these other pieces off. Looks like the clay had wrapped around an edge of the foil. There's a little bit caught underneath, kind of folded under. I figure I'll probably have to clean up these pieces just a little bit, but that's not bad. I'll have to figure out how to glue this stuff onto the seat, onto the chair. I'm thinking maybe because the raw clay, the uncured clay, started to melt the styrene a little bit, similarly to how the plastic cement does, that maybe the plastic cement might work. I can try a drop of that on the back of one of these pieces just to see how it reacts to it. See if maybe that will work. If not, super glue would probably work. If not, maybe just PVA. I got the seat cushions glued onto the plastic frame. I tried the plastic cement, but the polymer clay did not react to it at all, so that was a no-go. I ended up using CA glue. That worked just fine. So I got the chair mounted to the base. This is the bottom piece that goes on the bottom of the cabin. And I figured out about how high I wanted it to be, where it would actually put the pilot. So I set him in just temporarily, then put the cabin frame on, and just kind of figured out exactly where I wanted him to be relative to that frame. So I've got him just where I want him, and I just put a piece of sheet styrene, super glued that to the bottom of the resin piece here, and then used plastic cement to connect the chair post to that sheet styrene. I will need to drill a hole up through the back here to run wiring for the lighting. The wiring for the lighting is going to be coming up through the base, through one of the legs, don't know which one yet, and then coming across into here, and that's the piece where this piece mounts onto, and then it goes up into the cabin from there, and then out to the arms and the thrusters in the back. But routing the wiring is going to be an important part of how I design what's happening in the cabin. It's something I've got to take into account. So I started by just working on what's happening on the ceiling of the cabin. And for routing the wiring, I put just a piece of square tube, styrene tube across that, because I know I need to have the wiring come up the back of the cabin and then to branch off in both directions to go to the parts on either side, because there's going to be spotlights in both sides. Oh, and to the thrusters, those come through those same pieces that have the floodlights, so the thruster circuits need to come out back here as well. So I definitely need to have routing for wiring that goes to either side. So I added that square tube. That'll give me a place to run the wiring behind there. But then I had to cut an opening for the wiring to come up from below into that. And then also I need to bring wires forward to the spotlights that are on the front of the cabin frame. Here, those two spotlights there. There's holes for those in the ceiling. And so I need to run wiring from the back up to the front there. And I decided to run a rectangular tube from there to here, so the wires would go up into that opening there and then go through the inside there. You can see the tool there goes through, and that'll come out here. I didn't want to have the rectangular tube go all the way to the front because the operator's head is going to be up here somewhere. So yeah, there's his head. So I wanted to give him a little bit of headroom. I didn't want it to get too crowded there. So I just ended that rectangular tube, and I'm just going to have the wires come out and go to the openings in the ceiling for those spotlights. But I've got the cable routing to the top, and then I just started adding in some paneling detail to the ceiling to kind of cover up the details. That's what I've got so far. I also started working on some panels for the walls. So this panel here is just going to slide into that wall. Basically the same thing on the other side. It's going to go in like that. I want to add some detail to these walls just because they're big, flat, empty panels. So as you can see, I cut some openings in the wall. And the idea is to have that look like a recessed panel, a recessed section. And I made these little triangular boxes to go around those to make it look so that those would be like the walls of that recessed area. And then I'll put another piece on the back, so it's not hollow all the way through, but put another piece on the back and then fill that with like tubes and little greeblies and stuff, just to kind of make it look like you can see inside the guts of the SCV. And then I took the piece that I cut out for that open panel, flipped it over to the other side, just to kind of look like another bolted on panel or something. And I also created a panel for the back wall with a tube to run the wiring up from below up to the square tube up at the top, and then this piece to kind of cover that opening that I cut into the square tube. The opening is just to kind of help me route wiring through there and to get it to go all the places it needs to go fairly easily. And then I'll be able to take this panel and glue it in place later, and it'll kind of line up with that back wall. I am going to build up the floor, not just have the big post sticking up like this. There's got to be like a platform that the pilot can stand on when he's, moving to the back of the cabin to access equipment or whatever, make repairs or whatever. He needs to be able to stand up and kind of move around. And so there needs to be a floor underneath him here-ish, somewhere about there. It would probably make sense to have some controls in front of the pilot, so kind of just on the back here. So almost have like a dashboard with like a display and some other controls, that he's gonna use as he's doing his work. He can lean forward and flip switches and press buttons or whatever. Probably makes sense for him to have something like that. So I need to design that still. It's something I could maybe design in 3D and then print it. I kind of want to just try my hand at scratch building something. Scratch building the rest of the cockpit. So I want to take a stab at that. I don't know how good it'll look or if I'll be able to do a good job, but I want to give it a try. But before I can do that, I realized I needed to figure out the window glazing situation. I've got the 3D model. I can try to work up something with the 3D model that'll help me get like a flat pattern that I can use with like the clear plastic to help me just try and make this all out of one piece that I can just fold into shape. So I made an effort at doing that, and I think it worked. So here's the flat pattern I used. Here's the first one that I tried. So each of those dashed lines are bend lines. So I tried it out, and I'm just cutting it out of some of this sheet of acetate. It's like craft acetate material that I've used for other projects. So the first one I cut out to try it out, and it worked pretty good. This is the end result. So I cut it out and then folded it. As you can see, I just used some masking tape to tape the piece of just a scrap piece of acetate to the template that I just printed on some copy paper, and then just used this tool to kind of mark where the bend lines are on the plastic, and then used a knife to cut out the pattern, and then I just folded it into shape, and it works pretty well. It actually lines up quite nicely. You kind of have to push it into place in a few of the spots, but once it's finally glued in place, I think it'll look pretty good. I did note a few places where I could maybe cut it maybe a little more. It was cut a little bit too long and sticking out past the frame in a few places, like on the bottom there. It does stick out past the frame a little bit there, a little bit on the sides, and then there were a few places where it didn't quite fit right, so I had to shave back some of the corners, or in the case of these little pieces of window down here at the bottom, you can kind of see the cut edge of those a little bit too easily. And so I got my template and just made some manual adjustments with a pencil. Just cut out. So that's that edge that I was just talking about, where on the bottom window you can see the cut edge a little bit too much. I just extended that out a little bit and cut it there instead. And then I noted a few places where I didn't really need to mark the bend lines because there's not a drastic enough bend there to really need it. And I cut that out again and got this piece, which fits a lot better. The first piece I just cut out of a piece of scrap, and I wasn't too careful when I was bending it. I ended up scuffing it in places. You can see some scuffs on that side window there. And so it's not the finished piece that I wanted to use. But for this one, I tried a different approach where I actually cut out a piece of the acetate and then I completely covered it with masking tape on both sides just to protect the surface. And then I got the flat pattern template and taped that over the top. And again, just use this tool to mark the bend lines that I needed to actually bend. I had to push pretty hard to get through both the layer of template and the layer of masking tape underneath. And then I actually left the masking tape on even after it was cut out to do the bends, so that I wouldn't, my bending tool wouldn't scuff up the plastic. And then once it was decently well shaped, I took the masking tape off, and now it's a lot clearer, a lot cleaner. There's some dust and stuff on it, but that technique worked pretty well. So there's the window. Yeah, once I put some glue on there, that'll hold in nicely. So yeah, that's a little bit more progress on this thing. Most of what I'm still currently doing is kind of towards the end goal of figuring out all the lighting. Once I've got that in place, then I'll know where everything needs to go, all the lighting needs to go, where all the wires need to go, how I want to route them, whether I want to be able to see them or not. And that will inform me on what has to be in place for the cockpit details. And then everything else I can just kind of go with the flow and just do whatever feels good in the moment, what looks cool. I've done a lot of work on the details inside of the cockpit. I started working and just kind of got into the groove, and before I knew it, I had done a whole bunch of work. So let me get you caught up on where I am. I've added some details to the seat, as you can see. Importantly, I added a platform that the pilot would walk on. Also some foot controls. I added those so that when the pilot gets placed in, so it looks like his feet are operating some pedals. And I just used some of the same 1/4-inch tube that I used for the seat post. The seat that's supporting, or the post that's supporting the seat. I use that same 1/4-inch tube to kind of build up the platform, and then just put some like vent louvers underneath that. Just imagining it was some part of the life support system, air circulation or whatever. And then I also just added some other little greeblies there, just to make it look interesting and not as plain. Because that part you can see through the window. So yeah, that bottom windows exposes all of that. So I wanted to add some detail there, make it look interesting. I added some additional details to the seat itself. I added these cables, just kind of going up from the arm and wrapping around to the back. And then I added some kind of pneumatic hydraulic type shocks suspension to the seat, just to give it a little more detail. Added a little canister looking thing right there, maybe a fire extinguisher or a supplemental emergency oxygen or something. So that's the seat. That's nearly done. I'm pretty satisfied with what I've got here. For in front of the pilot, I wanted to put some controls on the inside of the canopy frame. So I designed this little piece out of just some black sheet styrene, just to kind of look like a little dashboard, and that fits right up in there. So it would kind of look something like that from the front. Kind of a bit of a sunshade. And then on the inside, something like that. I left it open because I intend to light the controls on this, and so I gave myself the ability to kind of work on some lighting in there. I'll close that up once that's done. So for the controls themselves, my idea is to kind of design a custom decal that I can put on there that shows little buttons and indicators and switches and whatever. Maybe like a display or two on there. And some of those will be lit up, some of them won't. But yeah, so I intend to put a decal there. I haven't designed that yet, but in order for like details to show up on a decal, I'm going to need to put probably some white behind there. So I designed this piece of really thin sheet styrene. I haven't glued it in place yet because I'm going to take some measurements or a photo or something of that just so I have an idea of the size and shape of that for designing the decal. But once that decal's ready, I'll glue that in place, and then I should be able to put the decal straight on there. Drill some holes wherever I need light to come through, and then yeah, that should be good. For the side panels, I've added some additional detail to those. Added some kind of pipe tubing conduit looking stuff here up at the top. Added this kind of greeley thing here. And then I added another control panel. And I intend to light this control panel, have some of the controls be lit up. And so I built that out of the black styrene to help with the light blocking. And then I put a thin sheet of the white styrene over the top of that so that I can put some decals on each of those rectangles. Same idea as what I'm going to do with the forward control panel. Once I glued that on there, I kind of realized I still need to get access to do lighting behind there, so I had to cut open this hole in the back so I can actually manage the lighting. I also started adding some piping inside of this open hole. I talked about that earlier where I made this kind of triangular box to kind of be an opening that you can kind of see inside the internals of the SCV through the cockpit, and that's designed to just fit in this opening here. And so from the outside you can see inside there. And I mentioned before that I'm going to not leave this open to the inside, but have another piece that goes over the top of that. So that's what this piece is here. And I just added some like greeblies to that, and that's going to go cover that up. So then from the outside there's just kind of a little glimpse into the inside of the SCV. And then for the other side, added some more details, as you can see. Added another place where I intend to put a custom control decal there. I don't intend to light this one, so I didn't build out like a black light box for that one, simply because there's just not really room for it. So by the time I get the walls in place and the seat there, and then get the pilot seated, you can see there's not a lot of space for him in there. If I had built out this control panel with a light box like I did on the other side here, it would be right up against him and he would just be shoulder to shoulder boxed in. Like I said, he's cramped enough, so I decided to not light this control panel here, but I'll have some lights over here. And for this side, I added one other little back plate here with some greeblies on it and some panel details. I started putting some stuff up here in the corner. The detail at the top there looks unfinished because it is. I started working on putting some detail up there, and then I thought, I better check to see if I can even see that, because once this panel is installed and then put this plate in place, then the only way I can see into this is through the front, right? Because all these sides are going to be closed off. So I wondered, can I even see up there? And sure enough, I cannot. So I realized it was a waste of effort to try and do any detailing over there. So I stopped. So yeah, I had some fun just kind of building out little pipes, going in different directions inside the wall there. You actually can see the detail better from this side. Just put in some like flat strips to kind of break up those plain walls there. Didn't bother on this side because you can't see that wall from the outside. And yeah, I think it was effective. It looks like there's stuff going on in there. And then for the back wall, I've added some detail to that as well. Mostly just some like pipes and tubing and stuff, conduit looking stuff. Other little greeblies. I just used just some stock styrene for most of it. But then for like that kind of corrugated looking tubing, that's a guitar string. Got a couple of different sizes of guitar string for the different corrugated looking tubes. And then for the smooth looking tubes / wires, that's some lead wire that you can get as like it's used for tying flies, like fly fishing flies. So fly tying wire, got just various sizes of that, and this stuff was a treat to work with. I've tried to use like electrical wire in the past. Well, I even used some here, like on this red. That's just some electrical wire that I have on the seat. There's a couple of black, just scraps of electrical wire. Looks like flexible tubing, and it works. But it's kind of a pain to work with because you bend it and it kind of holds shape, but kind of not. It fights you a little bit. And I've tried using like other types of wire, just like bare copper wire or like steel wire, and it's hard to bend and it can be difficult to work with. But this lead wire is smooth. Like it bends really easily, but it also holds its shape nicely. I mean, it's soft, so if you bump it, it's gonna flex. So it works great in a situation like this where I'm putting it right against the wall. So I kind of glued it in a couple of places, and it's stuck there. I'm not too worried about it. But if I were to jam this tool in there and start moving things around, it would certainly bend. But yeah, it's nice to work with. It's just easy to form, and it holds its shape well enough. So the back piece just kind of slides up in. I designed it to kind of fit between the two side walls. And it goes in like that. And then once I get the seat in place, the bottom piece, and then the pilot on there, and the front window canopy frame in place, it's starting to take shape. But yeah, I'm really happy with the progress I've made so far. It's been pretty fun to do this scratch build. I like adding all the little greeblies and panel details and whatever. That's fun work. Constructing some of the structure is a challenge. Like building out these light boxes, like building this one was a pain. Anyway, there have been some challenges, and some of the structural stuff is difficult to make just because I really don't know what it's going to look like, and I just have to start building something to see if it works out, see if I like it, see if it, is functional. But so far, it's all turned out pretty good. So I'm really happy with the results of what I've got here. I might do a little more detailing on this panel here. It's a little plain back here, so I might add something there. Not sure if I need to, but I'll think about it. Other than that, and just the controls that are going to go on the pilot's hand, pretty much all the details there. So I can start thinking about lighting, what that's going to look like, where I need to run the wires. and design the control decals. Yeah, I think that's what's up next for me. But this is going to be it for this video. So thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.